friend, to clean the air intake manifold on this third generation Prius is smoother than other videos make it look. I'm not saying it's easy, but I got a few tricks and shortcuts that'll save you some frustration and cure your PCV error codes plus a slew of other things. DeMille's behind the camera. Let's get started. Alright, so this job starts by getting the cold air intake assembly out of the way, and I'm going to save you some time by breezing right through it with a quick overview. Yeah, this part's got a difficulty level of about 1 stogie. And if you're watching this while you're sitting on the toilet, drop your comment below. For your honesty, I'll give you a discount code to our Merv's merch store, alright? Behind your airbox here, you got a mass airflow sensor, so don't go yanking things apart. I'm starting with this here hose clamp, so things are going to move easily. That was a nice camera move, DeMille. Thanks. There, you see that's loose. It ain't going to fight me now. You release the spring clamps, the lid's going to swing right on up and out, and now you got a little more flexibility to get that mass airflow sensor disconnected carefully. You just give it a squeeze, you see. And from the other side here, you see I got a top mounting bolt, plus 1, 2, 3, 4 more. And I'm going to take them out using nothing but this drill with an extension on my socket. I'm zipping through this easy stuff because the real goal is to get down to the throttle body and manifold area. And the airbox itself will hold your bolts. This hose comes out of its cute little clips, and then the whole shooting match comes right out. Next, remove the clip that's holding this hose, the boot that's on your throttle body, and you end up with something what looks like this. Now, if you've seen the nuts and bolts video with the ringleader of that Prius gang, he tells you to clamp your coolant hoses and take them off the throttle body. But you do not need to do that, because you don't have to take the throttle body out of the car. In fact, Mendel, my favorite Prius shaman from the chat boards, even tore into them fellers, and he'll back what I'm telling you. However, you'll notice that my hoses are clamped, and I've done it with basic purpose clamps like what we all got laying around the house. Because in my case, I want to monkey with the throttle body, hold it in my hand, and I want to clean her real good. Plus, I'm going to talk about this screwball gasket some of you might have bought. But if you want to save time, you can just leave the throttle body hose attached, disconnect her from the mouth of the air intake manifold, and tie her back out of the way. Yeah, I always stuff a rag in there so I don't drop my sidearm in there or nothing and damage it. And you see here I got the top one disconnected, but I got to shimmy back this bottom one. And if you're trying to memorize the position of these hoses, this one's got an orange mark on it. Take note of that. So you take your bolts out of your throttle body, and there's a couple of obvious electrical connections. The one for the throttle body motor might be a little bit stubborn, but I jimmied it gently with this little pick. And you take out your throttle body. Yeah, I don't know if you can see down in there real good, but this is a puddle of oil. DeMille, fetch me that baster, the one off Helen's bedside table.
I'm afraid to go in there.
She ain't gonna bite you. Yeah, this car's a prime candidate for an oil catch can. I'm gonna save up for one of them Tracy Lewis ones. Look at that. I can't remember the last time I was face to face with such a disgusting mess. And your PCV valve's probably gunked up too. We'll talk about troubleshooting that in a minute. Here's another time saver, and it involves this EGR pipe, what connects from your manifold, over to the EGR valve. You'll see people strain and struggle to disconnect it from the intake manifold side, but you can leave it connected there and still be able to shimmy the intake manifold out. So all you gotta do is take out these here 10mm bolts from this side, where the EGR pipe pairs up with the valve. But there's times when people simply want to take out the pipe on its own so they can clean it, and that's why today I'm showing you how I take it out separately. Just remember the shortcut that I showed you, and you can leave it attached like a tail when you slip out your air intake manifold. All right, so there's a bracket here with the wire and harness attached to it. I break that free using a plastic pry tool to give me more flexibility. You could also create a little more space by jamming a plastic pry tool in there sideways. Gives you a little more access to that 10 millimeter. The 10 millimeter bolt comes out of the bracket, and once it's loose, I just take it out with my fingers, and then two 10 millimeters come out of the EGR pipe behind the bracket. I loosen this top one with a box wrench, and for the bottom one, I reach in there with a socket on an extender. Loosen them by hand. Be careful not to drop them. Swing that bracket out of the way to get at both of them. I already showed you this side. Be careful because you got a gasket there, but at least it's a clip-on. Hey, you know, DeMille and I just celebrated our 2 million viewer milestone on YouTube, and we're thinking about doing memberships. If memberships tickle your fancy, drop me a comment and let me know what kind of perks might be of interest to you. I'm going to move this gasket out of the way, and here's what the EGR valve is spitting out. EGR, of course, stands for exhaust gas recirculation, so it's reburning fumes that have already been burned. If you'd like a printable cheat sheet of these secret steps, just click the link below the video because we're offering those now. A lot of people prefer it to holding a phone in their hand. You should still watch the video, though. There's that filthy little minx we took off. Yeah, I'm disgustimated by that. That means automatically disgusted. But you know, for 170-some thousand miles on this vehicle, the buildup ain't that incredible. We're gonna clean that up real good along with everything else. If I could get these clamps and hoses out of the way, I'm gonna show you that we're only about 5 steps away from freeing the air intake manifold entirely. And it ain't gonna take a lot of contortionist moves. Specifics in a minute, but first the overview. The tentacles of this harness, they got a death grip on your air intake manifold. So we're gonna release the kraken, so to speak, by loosening up this mounting bolt over here, and then 3 fastener clips, which are behind here, here, and here. DeMille's gonna show you close-ups of these in a minute. There's 2 nuts and 3 bolts up here. They're 12 millimeter. The one on the left actually holds your dipstick in place, and loosening that is going to enable you to move her out of the way. Some people talk about a bolt down below, but removing this one was all I needed. And finally down here, we're going to detach the PCV hose, what comes from your crankcase. There's an air hose over here, and this electrical connector. So first, the support bolt for the harness. Now the clips that hold this side in place. We're coming in over the passenger side fender. And don't pay no attention to this brown wire. It's just a thermostat wire I like using to tie things back like a giant bread tie. Handy. So for the clip under here, I'm going to use a plastic pry tool and pop that out first. And then there's a clip down here, which attaches to the wiring harness. And then there's one under here, which I'm going to show you how to reach in a minute. This one ain't too bad, a little bit of a reach. For this one, I'm coming around the starboard side. DeMille, hopefully I won't be in your shot. And you see this one here lodges through the silver shiny bracket. You see on the backside here, I squeezed the wings to release it with my superhuman strength. A mortal might want to use a pair of pliers. You see there, she's loose enough now, and that's going to enable us to pull out the air intake manifold. So now we're going to take out this 12 millimeter that holds the dipstick to the manifold, and then you'll see that bracket swings out of the way. And we're going to take out the remaining 12 millimeters. But before she gets too loose, I want to deal with this connector. Hey. Well, I'm trying to stay out of the way, but... There. And this hose. I make those amazing sounds with my mouth, you know. Don't be disappointed if yours don't do it. And then we got the vent hose, what comes out of the crankcase for the PCV valve here. Yeah, I'm going to get that clip back out of the way. Remember, grippy gloves give you superhuman strength. You might want to use a tool to grip this. It can be stubborn. And I cleaned out my cowl area with a shop vac so any loose debris that was under the hood won't fall into them intake ports. Now the final 12 millimeters, we got nuts and bolts up here. Feel free to double check me, but I think the torque specs are like 21 foot-pounds on this when you're reinstalling it. And it's time to wrangle her out. And she's out. Of course, there's a lot of buildup inside these intake ports. Like crispy, crunchy charcoal. It's filthy from all that vaporized oil that's flowing back through. No, this ain't your latest colonoscopy. It's that crud clinging to the neck of a fuel injector. You see there? The fuel that sprays from your fuel injectors keeps the intake valves pretty clean. These don't look too bad considering the mileage. I wish I could get deeper in there to show you more of them. I wiped out everything real carefully with a rag drenched in parts cleaner and used a couple of other tricks. Finally, I got her looking pretty good. And I'll show you how I clean this as well as the intake manifold in just a minute. While you're here, why not seize the opportunity to replace your PCV valve? Just a couple of bucks, a 22 millimeter or 7/8 inch deep socket is all it takes. Which leads us to Merv Serve tip number 17. Shaking your PCV valve will let you know how goopy it is inside. It should bounce freely with a nice loose clicking sound as it jostles around. Here's a new one. Listen for a clicking spring. You hear it? Now here's the old one. What I took out. Muffled, 'cause it's goopy inside. Time to replace it. For cleaning, I'll be using a variety of brushes, picks. This toothbrush I grabbed from Helen's bedside table. She does a lot of chew. And it's important to point out there's a distinction between the various cleaners that are available to you. You got your parts cleaner here. You got brake cleaner, which I'm convinced are one and the same, but a lot of people won't admit it. Then you got your carburetor cleaner. It's a horse of a different color. And you got your purple power, which is the milder and most cost-effective solution, but requires rinsing. Now I'm going to clear something up for you, because I almost come to fisticuffs with Leatherfoot Escalante down at the Moose Lodge trying to tell me there's no big difference between brake cleaner and carb cleaner. But these nitrile gloves will show you there really is, and it's worth being careful about. Here, let's do it this way. DeMille, you gonna be able to see this better? Here, I'll put one here, and is that better? All right. All I'm gonna do is spray one of these with brake parts cleaner and one of these with carburetor cleaner to show you the different effects they have. So first, brake parts cleaner going on this one. And now the carburetor cleaner. And then we're going to spray this one real good and juicy too. We'll come back to this after I show you some air intake manifold secrets. So of course the gaskets are coming out. This one's going to be replaced. Margie, put that on eBay for 3 cents. And this one. You can get a new one for a couple of bucks. We're going to reuse it. And for cleaning the air intake manifold, it helps to start with the nooks and crannies. I use this nice pipe cleaning brush set. Picked it up at Harbor Freight. They got them on Amazon too. Make sure DeMille puts a link in the description. I get out as much of the dry stuff as I can. And they got a combination of nylon brushes and brass and stainless steel. Be rough where you can and gentle where you need to be. This is where that EGR pipe comes into the manifold. There's a channel runs all the way through this thing, and there's also a little pinprick channels that branch off towards your main ports. I'm going to show you how to clean these in a minute. I'm going to take this off. I reckon it's a solenoid valve that purges out your fuel vapors. I'm going to manhandle this intake and spray it down with all sorts of stuff. So you want to get any sensors and delicate instrumentation out of the way. Here's an air pressure sensor, couple $100 if you break it. Get that out of the way. This is what we call getting the kids off the street before you go all Rambo with harsh chemicals. And speaking of chemicals, let's take a look at our little test with those nitrile gloves. The brake cleaner leaves stuff squeaky clean. It gets rid of oil on your rotors, for example. In that respect, it was merciless, but it was safe on these nitrile gloves. Whereas, ironically, carb cleaner's good for gaskets, seals, rubber, vinyl, neoprene. But look at the goopy mess it made out of your nitrile gloves. So be aware, friend, it's gonna eat right through them. I end up using some pretty stiff brushes to clean out parts of the manifold. Also, I work on that EGR pipe. Get creative, but if the part has a mounting surface, be gentle and wipe it by hand. These are the little tributaries that branch off the EGR passageway, what goes through your manifold. You can get in there with a nail or a pick like this one. I just happen to have the perfect size brush. So if I shine my flashlight through this EGR passageway, you can see how it leads down through your manifold. And them tiny channels come off it at a right angle. And from the port side here, you can see up through those little pinprick openings. So my air intake manifold and all my parts get brushed to loosen up that crunchy home-style flavor. And eventually I wind up with clump-free surfaces, a pile of stuff that looks like this, and a pipe that looks like this. Next, armed with some parts cleaner, I'm going to spray the air intake manifold real good, including this EGR passageway. Slosh things around in there real good and do a dump out of the heavy stuff. Wipe out whatever I can with a rag. Repeat the process. It did seem to me like the carb cleaner broke down the heavier baked-on stuff. And then the brake cleaner did good follow-up work for me. I can't wait to get to the point of diminishing returns, but I know I'm going to have to step through a couple other special cleaning methods from here. And although I was swept away by an indescribable chemical euphoria, I'm starting to think visiting alternate dimensions might not be the smartest thing, regardless of what Joe Rogan says. So with the toxic work behind me, it's time to move on to my purple technique. But I clean out the wash tub in between stages so I can track my progress. I soak her down with purple power real good, and you can probably do this with Dawn dish detergent. They use it to clean up oil spills. So I let her soak in purple power. I wipe her out with a shop rag. Keep repeating that process. And I mean, you watch, I'm determined that eventually this thing's going to be clean enough to drink keg stands from. And the crud just keeps on coming. Finally, I'm going to fill her up real good with purple power and hot water. Let that soak overnight. And we'll see what purple power does come morning. Yeah, I'll wait here. In the morning, I dump her out. It seems like there's a never-ending supply of Texas tea coming out of this thing. If you use a brush like this, make sure the bristles don't shed into the manifold. I pressure wash her. I squirt her down again. I soak her some more. I go over and over and over these cycles. Finally, I rinse her out and I get to the point where I'm pretty happy with her. My EGR pipe looks like this. I got a clean throttle body and a good-looking air intake manifold. I get rid of any water in there and dry her out. Helen's blow dryer fits perfect against the mouth of that air intake. She can handle heat, but don't let your blow dryer melt. The air flows through here perfectly, because that's what she's designed to do. Now, a few reassembly reminders that'll save you some heartache. Here you got your nice clean EGR pipe. Make sure you got that rubber gasket in place when you reattach it. Yeah, I got this Fel-Pro gasket for a screaming deal on Amazon. There's a link in the description below. It, of course, goes right here. But to seal your nice clean throttle body against the air intake manifold, they give you the squirreliest gasket with this here screen on it. Strikes me as some kind of high-tech chicken wire. But whether it's there to disrupt the airflow or some say to catch large chunks of debris, which doesn't make sense because doesn't your engine air filter do that? And besides, it don't fit right because that metal keeps her from being fully seated. So, nice idea. Yeah, it's one of them things kids dream up like the internet. Never gonna catch on. I stick with the original design. Fits like a glove, thank you very much. Remember, the purge valve and map sensor need to get reattached, and after you pair up your cool blue Fel-Pro gasket with the intake ports, it looks pretty. And we're ready to reverse the process and put her back in. And don't worry, our step-by-step PDF Margie's typing up is going to have the removal and reinstall process. I think she's raising money for her ballet lessons, because I seen her perform and she needs help. Poor thing keeps falling to the floor. Now, for the intake ports on the engine itself, I work with a rag to wipe it down. Sometimes I use Helen's toothbrush or even a pick, but in all cases, I always pull the charred material back towards me. Especially because that dried stuff is like sand and grit, so it can do some damage. Gentle suction might help, but I was concerned my shop vac might be too harsh. So here's my before and after shots. I think it's pretty nice. That coating on the outside of the injector I wasn't gonna monkey with. I was so proud. I cleaned up the entire engine compartment. Hope this helped you. And hey, be sure to watch my video where I talk about the correct orientation of every metal EGR gasket. Leave your comments and grab one of them PDF files on your way out the door.